don't need to be throwing them around unless there's a basis. And if there's a basis, then we need to do our due diligence and send it to the hearing. That's my motion. So further discussion?
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me, I mean, we're hearing all this information. It's almost as if we should redact the actual complaint, and I think the board should hear first before we put this burden on a committee chair. I mean, that's really pushing up our responsibility as a board in getting involved.
Well, I
can
think
vote
the good
against the
thing,
motion if you want, because I think the hearing.
yeah, I think the good thing about going to the hearing committee is if they warrant it being an issue, or if they need, you know, to have a conversation about it, then they can ask us.
That's right.
That way our hands are clean and we're not involved in any he said, she said.
Way too many conflicts from the board standpoint. So, okay, I'm going to close discussion on the motion. I'm going to call a question. All those in favor of the motion that was that I made, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we are going to move quickly here. The next point was I was bringing this issue to the board in terms. This is number 4, approval of the standstill bid selection and contracts relating to outstanding committee work, so as to prevent unnecessary costs. This is pretty self-explanatory. We had contracts that were going to be. We were going to award the bidders. We had certain things that were going to be undertaken, but we've obviously just passed and are enacting some major landscaping things. Jocks and his committee are doing some excellent work on the maintenance, and they're putting together a plan of how to put all this stuff together and make it work sequentially in a proper manner. What we don't want to do is have people performing the work now that's unnecessary, that'll have to be redone based on what we're going to do in the future. So therefore, what I ask is, I'm asking this board, and I'm making a motion now, that the board approve a standstill of any outstanding significant material work. And again, there's a little bit of discretion there, but what I'm asking for are the major contracts that are out there that would essentially result in wasted costs, wasted money by this association for having work done that's going to later need to be changed or modified, primarily with respect to contractor work on the property. We're not talking about service contracts and things like that. We're talking about contractor work on the property. We're talking about work on the roadways. We're talking about striping. We're talking about fairly major contracts that I think we need to at least suspend for a period of time until we get a jail report from the maintenance committee and further report from the landscaping committee as to how these things need to be done. So I know there's a lot there, but do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. Yes.
For how long?
Well,
I mean, the restriping has been a very important issue. I hate to see it lumped into all of maintenance. I mean, can't we just separate the fencing and the striping and the speed bump, to a different person? Why does it have to be lumped in with all of what Jacques is doing or maintenance? I mean,
yeah, that's my concern. Is that
I just think
we
that
have
how long are we going to wait?
I understand what you're saying. We have new committees.
Right.
We have new committee members. I think that it's important that each committee has a fresh look. And to amend my motion and add to it, I would say that the committees need to come back to this board with a report within the next 30 days and tell us exactly what needs to be halted and what needs to be released. I would say 30 days that we need to have maintenance and landscaping and any other committees that may be involved. Those are just the two that I'm aware of. Where people, as you search your committees, you need to look at the items that are going to be undertaken, follow up with the management company about what's being requested for payment, what's being requested to be awarded, things of that nature, and we need to correspond and report back to this board. I would love to have reports by the end of the month so we can decide something at the meeting, but I would ask for a suspension of at least 30 days to cover that next meeting.
Point of order.
Yes.
I think you need to make it a 45 days, but our next meeting is not going to be within the next, our meeting is within a 30-day. That's going to enact the report to us on the next meeting. after 30 days, that's going to be the next scheduled board meeting.
I'll amend the motion to 45 days to cover
At the March
meeting.
Can
Would be the latest.
Can I just request that we make it for the March board meeting? Which will
That's
cover
what I
everything?
just did.
Good.
That's what I just did.
March.
Any other, points of?
Jose,
Jose, yes.
We have to strike like make an exception with striking, because I think we're looking for an accident, you know, from buyers who will come into to the community, so there's no striking, and if there's an accident, they might find the association liable.
How long has that been in existence?
Well, since the beginning, it's never been modified or adjusted.
So,
It needs it
I
back.
guess my next question is, why did it take so long?
The county
Not-
had to,
not directly to you, but-
the engineering had to do a design. It took a whole year just for the engineering, almost, we just got it done.
Okay, so have we awarded a contract?
No,
Okay,
no, the
so
things
then,
are not.
then I would stand on the motion. We have not awarded the contract.
We have only one bid, only one bid, we need two bids. And we have
For the striping?
to give you proper information, we have the engineer who worked for Conte, who is specialized on this kind of work, who work for us right now, and working to put out some bids. So this is not on hold at all. The only work that is on hold is the one that could interfere with some of the work that will need to be done. We are working on the drainage problem, so we're not gonna put a sidewalk immediately, and then, if you bring some month later, we have to cut it or take it out, to run the pipe underneath that. So that kind of plan, that is the kind of thing that are on hold right now.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay, any comments from the audience? Yes, quickly,
Just
Dawn.
quick to clarify for you guys. The striping went through is in engineering. It's not been bidded, there's not out there. Once you get your permit from the county, then it goes to bid. Okay, so that's.
That's why I stand on my motion.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great,
that's-
thanks.
And you can extend that permit, once you have a certain amount of days to commence work, if you need to extend it, but don't lose the permit, because you don't want to start the process.
Correct.
That's
I think 45 days. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I have one more thing.
Oh.
We shouldn't issue any payment ahead of time, like.
That's included in the motion. That's included in the motion. That wasn't clear. Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next. Okay, I'm going to jump real quickly and take care of 6. Number 6 is a non-issue at this point, as far as I know, because the bank
The bank
that
is
is
moving forward.
foreclosing on Carlisle is
On the
moving forward.
foreclosure lien, yeah.
Okay.
And if not, if that is delayed in any way, we
Then
will
we're gonna act.
pursue the violation of the fining. Because
Okay.
right now, the fining is accumulated. We
Yes.
have to go up to $1,000 before we can actually foreclose on that lien.
Okay,
Okay, so it doesn't make any sense to have 2 liens when we already have a pending lien for foreclosure.
Right,
So
which, as far as we know, based on the representation from the bank lawyer, they now have taken it off the shelf and are moving forward with
Yes.
foreclosure to get the person out of the house that's causing problems for the neighbors. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's tackle, so we don't need to ask for approval of the engagement of a law firm to move forward on 6. Okay, so 5, we've got to move quickly on this. Homeowner fences. Okay, the last time we were here at the meeting, we talked about sending the letters. The board approved the sending of the letters. I'm going to be very, very upfront about this. To the extent that anybody that watched the meeting or that's here was offended by the way that I referred to them, or folks that were involved that have defenses that are in the common area, I apologize to the extent that I gave the impression that I personally feel like they're bad neighbors. What I was trying to say was that some folks have used that term about them. I do not. I don't personally have an issue personally with my property or any of my neighbors that are on adjoining side to me having fences in HOA property. So I want to make sure that everybody understands, but to the extent I offended anybody, I apologize, because I didn't mean that, okay? But what is important is at the end of the day, we've done a lot of homework on this fence issue, and I'm just going to be very upfront. I'm going to be try to be as short as I can, okay? First of all, I understand that, that the ARC committee has apparently approved some of these people, some of these folks that have, again, just to put context, we have some people that have homes with their properties and they have fences around just their property. The people that we're referring to, there are about eight folks that have fences that go beyond their property into the HOA common area. And the point is that their fences run all the way up to the HOA's fence, which is at the back of the property. So in other words, their fence that they've installed encloses not only their backyard, but also HOA property. The ARC, as I'm told, has approved some of these fences. That, we're learning in retrospect, was probably an incorrect decision by the ARC. The board didn't make those decisions, but the board is obligated to correct any problems. And one of the problems that we have is that some owners have essentially taken possession of HOA common area property by adding these fences. And so what we did was we discussed this issue at the last meeting and we tabled it. I made a motion which was passed to table because I wanted to contact legal counsel for this board, for this association, about exactly how to deal with this issue. If the ARC has approved prior applications, and my understanding is that the ARC in the November meeting approved an application for somebody to install 15-inch gates recently, which they've already undertaken and they've spent that expense, this board is in a very difficult position where we have to make a decision, okay? We have people that are using common area property that is not appropriate, at least in my opinion, as one of the other homeowners who isn't using common area property. And we have to treat everybody the same. We cannot have discretion. We cannot improperly exercise discretion. And from what it looks like, that may have happened by the ARC making these decisions. Now, fast forward, why are we talking about this issue now when some of these folks, understandably, are saying, hey, nobody's getting hurt, nobody's getting harmed. What's the problem here? Why are we even addressing this issue? We're addressing this because at least one homeowner has had a problem with these issues and was in contact with the county. And the county has now come to us and said that these fences that are in the common area are not allowed. They're not going to be permitted. They would not have been permitted by the county in the current condition in which they exist. In other words, if an owner came in and said, I'm going to put up my fence around my property, the county would have given them a permit. But then to the extent that the owner decided that they were going to extend the fence back across the HOA property, the county has told us that that is not something that they would have permitted or approved, and that nobody should have been approved for such a fence. So, while the ARC may have approved it, the county has told us unflappably they would not approve it. And so, we have two issues. The way that some of these fences currently exist would not be, it has not been permitted by the county, and I would ask any of the members that have these fences, to the extent that it's been approved by the county and it's been inspected in its current location, I would ask them to come to me and bring me the proof because I want to see it. Because the county is telling me something different. The county is telling me that they would not have approved the fences as they run across the HOA property because they would not have allowed a permit and an approval on inspection for a fence that's on somebody else's property. Because when you submit for a permit, you have to submit a survey, and the survey shows your property line. And to the extent the fence is not on your property line, you're not in compliance with the permit. So the county is telling us that this is a problem. Also, we're concerned because these closures off of the common area can be a problem in an emergency situation. And these fences, they may have to be moved, they may have to be taken down, FPL may have to blow through them in an emergency. We can't have that because then potentially the HOA is subject to liability. So that is a concern. Also, there are issues that have been raised, and the county is all over this, where folks that run their fence all the way back to the fence itself, to our fence, are using our fence as a pool enclosure, which is not an appropriate pool enclosure. That's why the county is telling us that they would not have issued a permit that would allow a fence that goes all the way back to our fence at the end of our property and for the homeowner to utilize our fence as a pool enclosure. So, as you can see, we've done a lot of research and homework with the county. We've looked at this issue, and I gotta tell you, I talked with legal counsel, and without giving away privileged information, my concern is that the ARC may have made mistakes in the past approving these applications, but this board needs to correct it. That's my opinion. The board needs to correct it. The board needs to treat everybody the same. Some people are using HOA common area property, and others aren't. There are people that have recently gone into ARC and got approval for their fences and have been told they could run their fences back. And some owners have elected not to do that so they don't get into a property line issue like we have here today. So, long roundabout way of saying, I wanted to get all the information out. I'm going to make a motion that that this board approve the management company to go out and get bids so that we can, at the February meeting, the end of February meeting, accept a bid to move these fences to where they're supposed to be, because I don't believe that it is the homeowner's financial responsibility for moving these fences. I think that based on the approvals that have been given by the ARC to some of them, not only back then, but recently, as well as the ARC's inaction for greater than 30 days, which under our documents apparently operates as an approval. Because of the inaction on some of these, that there are, it's a gray area. And I think that in order to clean this issue up, it's unfair to ask a homeowner to pay for their fence being moved. And so I'm making a motion that this board direct the management company to get bids to have these 8 fences moved to the proper property lines, and for those bids to be presented with a recommendation from the property management company at the end of February meeting, so we can have an understanding of what the monetary amount is. That's my motion. Anybody second it?
I'll make a comment.
Okay, anybody?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second. Let's talk, and if I need to amend the motion, I can, but let's start with comments.
If somebody has a quote-unquote illegal fence in their yard and they can produce a county permit that permitted them to do that, then that's one thing. If they can't produce a permit that allowed them to do the fence the way they did it, I don't think that the board, I don't think that the HOA should pay for it, because they put up their fence illegally to begin with. Even if the ARC committee approved it, they still have to get the proper permitting from the county. And if the county didn't give them that permit, I don't think that the board, I don't think that the HOA, in my opinion, should pay for it. They should have to pay for it themselves, unless they can produce the proper permit.
Can I just follow up on that?
Yeah, KS.
One of the things that, this is a pretty serious issue, and there's grandfathering questions and all these other questions. But the bottom line is, if you sit down and read our docs, which we're all required to do, it's very clear that a property owner cannot encroach on common area property. So, in that regard, regardless, when you bought in here, you knew, or you should have known, or you're required to read the docs, it's very clear that you can't extend that fence onto HOA property. Now that said, I would have no problem providing a cushion for any homeowner that this would be a financial burden and allow them, I have no problem going in and doing the work, and we can assess that, and they can go back and give 6 months, interest free or whatever, because we made that mistake to try to help them out. But there's no way that you can tell me, this is very clear that your property cannot extend on HOA property. There is nowhere in those docs that say maybe, because, kind of, should have been. And for us to indiscriminately say, well, because you did it, it's okay, or because you didn't do it, it's not okay. I don't believe that that the HOA should pay for it, but I have no problem financially supporting in a period of time to make it easier for homeowners to get it done.
Yeah, I agree with that, what first thing that needs to be revised is the outcome. And,
Unfortunately, that wasn't in my motion, but I understand what you're saying.
and then, like, both of those guy explained that